Welcome to WeLearn Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 10 of Mercantile Law and the topic is Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. Topics to be covered: introduction, features, holder can sue in his own name, presumption and promissory note, essentials of promissory note, bills of exchange and its feature, crossing of checks, dishonor of the check on the grounds of insufficiency of funds, distinction of promissory notes and bills of exchange. Now come to the first topic, that is introduction of negotiable instrument. The word negotiable means transferable from one person to another, and the term instrument means any written document by which a right is created in favor of some person. Thus, the negotiable instrument is a document by which the right vested in a person can be transferred to another person in accordance with the Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. The term negotiable instrument has been defined as negotiable instrument means a promissory note, bills of exchange or check payable either to order or to the bearer. An instrument may be negotiable either by statute or by usage. Now, by statute, it contains promissory note, bills of exchange and checks of a negotiable instrument under Negotiable Act 1881, or by usage, it contains bank notes, bank drafts, scripts, treasury bills, etc. Main features of negotiable instrument. An instrument is called negotiable if it possesses the following characteristics or features. First, freely transferable, that is freely transferable from one person to another person. Transferability may be by delivery or endorsement and delivery. Main features of negotiable instrument. First, holder title must be free from defects. Second, the holder of the negotiable instrument in due course acquires a good title notwithstanding any defect in previous holder's title. A holder is due course is one who received the instrument for value and without any notice as to the defect in title of the transferor. The holder can sue in his own name. Another characteristics of negotiable instrument is that the holder can sue on the instrument on his own name. Now, presumptions. First is consideration, that is every negotiable instrument is deemed to have been drawn and accepted, endorsed, negotiated or transferred for consideration. Second is date. Every negotiable instrument must bear the date on which it is made or drawn. Acceptance. Every bill of exchange was accepted within a reasonable time after the date mentioned therein and before the date of its maturity. Transfer. Every transfer should be made before the expiry. Now, this is the promissory note. This is like an example of promissory note. This is the pro forma of promissory note. Promissory note. A promissory note is an instrument in writing, not being a part of a bank note or a currency note, containing an unconditional undertaking signed by the maker to pay a certain sum of money to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. Example: I promise to pay B or order rupees 500. I promise to pay rupees 500 and all other sums which shall be due to him. I promise to pay rupees 500 on D's death provided D leaves me enough to pay that sum. Lastly, I promise to pay rupees 500 and to deliver to him my black horse on 1st January next. Essentials of promissory note. That it must be in writing. A promissory note must be in writing. Writing includes print or typewriting. Promise to pay. It must contain an undertaking or promise to pay. Thus, a mere acknowledgement of debts is not sufficient. Notice that the use of the word promise is not essential to constitute an instrument as a promissory note. Promise should be pay money only and that should be certain. Signed by the maker. The promissory note must be signed by the maker, otherwise it has no effect. Parties. There are two parties involved, that is maker and the payee. Essentials of promissory note. It must be duly stamped under the Indian Stamp Act. It means that the stamps are required amount must have been affixed on the instrument. A promissory note which is not so stamped is nullity. This is the example of bills of exchange. Now, come to the topic bills of exchange. A bills of exchange is defined as an instrument. It is defined as an instrument in which writing containing an unconditional order signed by the maker, directing a certain persons to pay a certain sum of money only to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. Characteristics of bills of exchange. First, it must be in writing, that is the bills of exchange must be in writing. Second, it must contain an order to pay and a promise on request. The order must be unconditional and there must be three parties, that is drawer, drawee and last one is payee. The parties must be certain. It must be signed by the drawer and number, date and place are not essential in bills of exchange. This is the example of check. Now what is check? A check is defined as a bill of exchange. Check को हम define करते हैं bill of exchange की तरह, drawn on a specified banker, जो कि specified banker drawn करना है and not expressed to be payable otherwise than on demand. Second, a check is a bill of exchange with two added feature. Check bill of exchange की ही तरह है but उसमें two added features involve है. First one is it must be drawn on a specified banker. ये एक specified banker के according ही drawn किया जा सकता है. Second, it is always payable on demand. ये demand पे pay किया जाता है and not otherwise. This is the example of cross-checked, that how it looks, what is the performer or pattern. Crossing of checks. Crossing of check is a unique feature associated with a check, जो कि check से associated होता है, affecting to a certain extent the obligation of the paying banker and also its negotiable character. Crossing of a check is a direction to a particular banker by the drawee that payment should not be made across the counter. The payment on the cross check can be collected only through banker. जो payment होती है cross check की वो collect की जाती है सिर्फ banker के द्वारा. Crossing of checks is affected by drawing two parallel transverse lines. The check that is not crossed in an open check. जो चेक क्रॉस नहीं होता वो उसे हम ओपन चेक कंसीडर करते हैं. Who can cross a check? क्रॉस कौन कर सकता है क्रॉस चेक? फर्स्ट द ड्रॉअर ऑफ द चेक. वो पर्सन जो ट्रैक चेक ड्रॉ कर रहा है वो पर्सन चेक को क्रॉस कर सकता है. होल्डर ऑफ द चेक, जिसने चेक लिया है उस चेक को वो क्रॉस कर सकता है. Last one is banker in whose favor the check has been crossed specially. Banker या बैंक जिसके फेवर में चेक बनाया गया है वो उसे क्रॉस कर सकता है. A cross check is safer than a bearer check. How? First is when a check is crossed, the holder thereof cannot encase it at the counter of the bank. Encashment at the counter of the bank is possible only in the case of an open check, that is a bearer check is and an uncrossed check. Second, the holder of the cross check has to present the same to his bank for collecting its amount from the drawee bank. When the amount of the check is collected, the account of the holder is credited. Thus, it is possible to trace the party receiving the amount of the check. This is not so in the case of a bearer check बिकॉज अ बियरर चेक कैन बी एनकैश्ड बाय एनीबडी. जो बियरर चेक होता है वो कोई भी उसे कैश करा सकता है. हु प्रेजेंट इट्स एट द काउंटर ऑफ द बैंक. जिसके पास वो बियरर चेक है वो उसे कोई भी उसे एनकैश करा सकता है. क्रॉसिंग देयर ऑफ गिव्स प्रोटेक्शन अगेंस्ट पेमेंट ऑफ अ चेक टू द रॉन्ग पार्टी. Dishonor of the check on the grounds of insufficiency of funds. This is according to section 138 to 142 of the Negotiable Instrument Act provide for criminal penalties in event of dishonor of checks for insufficiency of funds. The drawer under section 138 may be punished with imprisonment up to 2 years or with a fine twice the amount of the check or with both. Distinction between check and bills of exchange. Now what is the difference between check and bills of exchange? Check, it must be drawn only on banker. Second, it can be drawn on any person including a banker. Second, in check the amount is always payable on demand, and in bills of exchange the amount may be payable on demand or after a specified time. Check, the check is not entitled to days of grace, and in bills of exchange the usage time, that is bill, is entitled to 3 days of grace. Check can be crossed. Crossing of bill of exchange is not possible. Distinction of promissory note and bills of exchange. In promissory note there are 2 parties, that is maker and payee, but in bills of exchange there are 3 parties, drawer, drawee and payee. Promissory note contains an unconditional promise by the maker to pay the payee, but in bills of exchange it contains an unconditional order to the drawee to pay according to the drawer's direction. Now there are some questions on the basis of this session. First one is, what are essential features of bills of exchange, that is bills of exchange के क्या features हैं उन्हें explain कीजिए. And second one is, what is difference between promissory and bills of exchange, that is promissory note और bills of exchange में क्या difference है उन्हें बताइए. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.